Namaskar, warm greetings from DELNET Developing Library Network, New Delhi, India. Distinguished speakers, Mrs. Makeswary Periasamy, Senior Librarian, Rare Collections, National Library of Singapore. Dr. Heather Brown, Librarian, Sector Standards and Education, Australian Library and Information Association, ALIA, Australia. Shri K. Jayakumar, President, DELNET. Dr. S.S. Murthy, Vice President. Dr. P.R. Goswami, Treasurer. A galaxy of the eminent librarians, archivists, library and information science professionals, IT department officials, IQAC heads, disaster management specialists, faculty, researchers, scholars, students, my colleagues here at DELNET New Delhi, and also its coordination units at Bangalore and Pune, ladies and gentlemen. I, Dr. Sangeeta Kaul, Director DELNET New Delhi, on behalf of DELNET Developing Library Network, takes profound privilege and honor in welcoming you all who have joined us today in person here at DELNET New Delhi office, as well as online from various parts of India and many other countries, including Bangladesh, Bhutan, Canada, Kazakhstan, Nigeria, Norway, Singapore, UAE, and USA, on management of rare and special collections and UNESCO Toolkit for disasters resilience. We are much grateful to each one of you for your overwhelming response, as more than 1,700 participants have registered for the session online from a good number, and also apart from a good number of professionals who have been able to join us here in person at DELNET New Delhi office. At the very outset, on behalf of DELNET, we would like to express our very warm, sincere gratitude and thanks to our most distinguished and luminary global speakers, Mrs. Makeswary Periasamy and Dr. Heather Brown, who have been very gracious in accepting our request and for their very intellectual presence with us today. We remain ever grateful for your stupendous support in making it possible for us to organize the symposium on a topic which holds a great relevance for each one of us. We would like to welcome Mrs. Makeswary Periasamy, Senior Librarian, Rare Collections, National Library of Singapore, who has joined us online. We may like to the bouquet of virtual flowers, which have a sense of strong connections and gratitude. Much Magus from each one of us who have been able to join us on this platform today, and also from DELNET, and it has been a profound pleasure in having you here with us. I have an immense pleasure in welcoming the renowned expert and distinguished speaker, Dr. Heather Brown, the Librarian, Sector Standard and Education, Australian Library and Information Association, ALIA, for her gracious presence here with us today at DELNET New Delhi. It is more a homecoming for Heather, and it is a very special connection and occasion for us to celebrate her presence through the knowledge engaging session. May I have a pleasure of presenting a bouquet of flowers to you, Heather, extending a warm welcome to you, and also acknowledging your unwavering, relentless support to DELNET for years, decades altogether, and also to the entire ALIA fraternity in India. Celebrations with the first presentation by Mrs. Makeswary Periasamy, who will be speaking on the management of rare and special collections at the National Library of Singapore, National Library Board. I have immense pleasure in introducing Mrs. Periasamy to all of you. For more than 25 years, Magis has contributed significantly to the management and development of rare and special collections at the National Library of Singapore. She is well versed in acquisition, selection, organization, preservation, and digitization. Her key accomplishments includes the design and setting up of the rare book room at the National Library, the implementation of preservation and conservation (PNC) strategies, including the establishment of a PNC studio to repair library materials in-house, and the drafting of the disaster management policy. Currently, Magus is also a reference and research librarian who is in charge of the Singapore and Southeast Asia Maps collection. She has curated 2 major exhibitions on maps and family history and has written several articles relating to Singapore. It's a profound honor and pleasure to have you with us, Magus, this morning, and thank you so very much for acceding to our request. Indeed, we are much grateful and obliged for your time and efforts in being here, and we really look forward now in getting your very expert, advice for especially handling, the rare and special collections. And warm greetings once again and hearty welcome from the entire fraternity from India. A very, very special, welcome to you. I have now a profound pleasure in requesting you to kindly start the deliberations. Over to you, Magus.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangeeta Kaur. That was a wonderful introduction. All right, so good morning and greetings from Singapore. I would like to thank Dr. Sangeeta Kaur, the DELNET community, and Dr. Heather Brown for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all about a subject that is very close to my heart, which is the management of rare and special collections for its long-term preservation, discovery, and access. My name is Mages, in short, in case some of you can't pronounce my long name, and I'm a senior librarian with the National Library for quite some time. Firstly, let me begin with the history of the National Library. The idea for setting up a library was actually mooted by Sir Stamford Raffles, who set up the first British trading post in Singapore. And so the National Library actually began as a school library within the island's first school, known as the Singapore Institution, and the library was then called the Singapore Institution Free School Library. After complaints from public that they were not able to access the library resources, it was converted to a public library and then called the Singapore Library. But members had to pay a subscription fee for using the library resources. At the time, the library was actually not free. In 1874, the library was merged with the museum and became known as the Raffles Library and Museum. And it was housed in the National Museum building. You can see it on the screen on the top on right. And in 1960, the library got its own building, the red brick building on the bottom, and was renamed the National Library. At that time, the library was also made free for Singapore residents. And in 1995, the National Library Board was established, which now manages the National Library, 28 public libraries, and the National Archives of Singapore. I'm going to talk to you about the how we manage the rare and special collections. Before that, I would just like to do a brief introduction and let you know that the rare and special collections actually support the twin mission of the National Library of Singapore, that is to preserve a national collection and support the nation's knowledge aspirations. The oldest items in the collections were, of course, inherited from our predecessor libraries. And the strength of the rare and special collections is the coverage on early Singapore materials. These are mainly used for research, publication, and exhibitions. The rare collection in particular is the National Library's prime collection and contains the rarest and most valuable titles which document the early history of Singapore and Southeast Asia. In 2004, when we moved from the old building, the red brick building, to the new building, we only had about 4,400 items in the rare collection. This year, we have over 20,000 items, and the collection spans the 15th century to the early 20th century. All right. I just wanted to give you a background to when we first started to do a reorganization of the rare and special collections at the National Library. Of course, there was already a system in place for managing the library collections, but with the impending move out from the old library building, that was in 2004, we had access to more resources and funding. So we could undertake a lot more activities, such as large-scale fumigation, conservation, repair, and digitization. Moreover, some of the formats in the library collection were not cataloged at all, but only had a listing, for access, such as maps and ephemera items. So a few years before we moved up from the old library building in 2004, we came out with new projects to properly sort and reorganize the various collections. So one of the key projects that we implemented was the Preservation, Conservation and Access project. And at this time, we also decided to digitize the rare items which were previously only microfilmed. So during the PCA project, we actually realized an important factor which is prevention is better than repairing the item after it's damaged. So what we did was we started to establish proper storage areas, proper processing requirements for the various formats, as well as proper handling and access procedures. We decided that we should take care of things from the start and not wait till the item has been damaged in order to repair it or so. And at the same time, we also drafted or revised policies and SOPs so that all staff are on the same page. Okay, one of the first things we established was what we call standardized processing guidelines. And we also realized that different formats require different processing requirements based on their storage and access. So whenever we acquire new material, we decided we will think about how we are going to store the item, how we are going to access the item. And this actually kind of dictated how we are going to process the item from the start. Okay, so one of the things we decided also previously, it was a common practice to stamp, especially rubber ink stamp on rare and special collection items. In fact, all library items were rubber stamped. So we decided this rubber ink was not of archival quality. So for rare items especially, we decided no labels or stamping on rare items were to be done. So all labels were to be pasted onto the archival box, or like for maps, they were put in a mylar enclosure. So nothing was to be pasted on the rare item itself. And another thing we realized also is that cataloging is very important because metadata is important for discovery and access. So keeping manual list of certain items is not practical. So all physical copies and digital copies as well, digitized copies, were are cataloged onto this integrated library system. And of course, as a library, we had to track all items properly. So each collection item was also given a session number so that we could track it from the point of acquisition. And the processing team actually came up with a tracking system. So whatever rare and special collections were acquired by the library were tracked via this tracking system. Another area we looked at was the preservation and conservation of these rare and special collection items. For example, surrogate copies, providing access to surrogate copies was important if you want to preserve the physical copy. And of course, we do not discard the physical copy after we have created the surrogate copies. And we realized that although microfilm technology is quite hardy, digitization, creating a digitized copy was actually more useful because people can actually search, do a keyword search on the items, and it also aided research. And we also indicated in every rare and special collections bibliographic record if there are surrogate copies, and these are to be consulted first. So all digitized copies were also made available online. And in 2009, we decided to set up a conservation studio after a short survey was done. And previously, because we used to outsource book repair, but we realized we wanted to control more of the kind of repairs that were done on our rare and special collections material. So we decided to set up a studio. And we also decided that we will not do too much repair to an item. We will try and do minimal conservation repair because we wanted to maintain the original integrity and look of the item. The idea was not to create an item where we can handle easily and which will look very new, but we wanted to make sure the item can be handled, but it still looks as it looked previously. And at the same time, we also prioritized conservation repair for rare and special collections materials. These took priority first, and whatever rare and special collection items were received by the library were also fumigated at the point of receipt. This is how the rare book room looked like several years ago. Now, of course, it's full because we have been actively acquiring. And of course, as I said earlier, the rare materials collection contains the oldest and most valuable items of the National Library. And because it's considered our prime collection, the rare items are kept in a special room under lock and key, with temperature and humidity control, and in a dark room with a water mist system. So at the moment, only a few nominated staff have access to the room, and another few have keys to unlock the cabinets. It's due to our audit observations that we had to implement this two-key system a few years ago. And as you can see, the books are encased in custom-made archival boxes, and whatever labels, barcodes, and titles are all pasted on the boxes. And the maps are, I mean, it's not on the slide, the maps are of course in Mylar sleeves, and photographs will be kept in photographic sleeves or special archival albums. Our special collections materials do not have the kind of restricted access that the rare materials have, but they are kept in what you call a closed access area, which is semi-restricted, which is only access is only available to the National Library staff, not to staff from other sections. And of course, the special collections include pre-1970s publications, many of which are out of print. So you can see that the this is the new building, the interior of the level 11, the Singapore and Southeast Asia collection floor. And as you can see, there is a corridor at the top, and that's where the closed access material, or what we call the special collections, are kept. And behind there are shelves as well. And I wanted to point out the ephemera collection. Previously, the ephemera collection were not properly sorted, and they were just kept in pamphlet boxes and called vertical files, and these tended to go missing, and we were also not able to keep a proper record of them. So what we did when we were moving to the new building was we implemented this project to properly organize the ephemera collection, such as brochures and pamphlet from the National Library, as well as other organizations in Singapore. And the ephemera collection actually contains information that may not be available in published sources. So we bought boxes and we organized them by the organization name. And those are the green boxes that you see there. About a few years ago, we decided that we would like to have a proper special collections reading room. So that's what you see. We created, we set aside space at the Singapore and Southeast Asia Collections reading room, and we built a kind of a glass reading room with its own temperature and humidity control, because we realized that improper handling is one of the major contributors to wear and tear. So we decided that we must educate not just staff but public as well. So this special collections reading room is for the consultation of rare and special collections items. No food, drinks, or cutting tools, pens are allowed when accessing the rare collections or fragile special collection item. And if for staff in the rare team, such as myself, my office is actually very near or on the same floor as the rare collections room. So we are also not allowed to bring in food, water, drinks or anything into the office area. We have a kind of a consolidated identified area in the pantry where we are to consume food. So this is to prevent accidental, spills, and then try and repair the book later on. For rare access, we also have supervised access. So if a If a patron wants to access the rare item, they have to fill up a online form, which is available on our online catalog when they are searching for the title. And then we will get a staff to supervise the access to the rare item. All right. In order to also preserve the items, we do not allow photocopying of rare items. And for those special collections items which are fragile, we also do not allow photocopying. What we do allow is digital photography without flash. Okay. This is, I know Heather is going to talk about the disaster management toolkit, but I just wanted to talk about some of the not really some of it, the measures that we did for disaster management preparedness. So there was no disaster management policy prior to 2015. So it was first drafted in 2015 when we realized that we need to have recommended measures to implement for staff to follow if, let's say, we encounter a crisis. We already had business continuity plans, which the National Library Board had already institutionalized. So what we did was we drafted the disaster management policy and we aligned it with the business continuity plan, which looked more at saving of the human beings within the organization as well as the equipment and so on. And we also identified key personnel who are in charge of each collection area who will have to be activated in case something goes wrong. Regular checks are of course done on temperature, humidity, and also air quality of the storage areas. And we also have a call tree via WhatsApp. And we do have this activation about every 2 months just to check that everybody is on the same page. And we did do 2 tabletop exercises where we tried and emulated the kind of crisis that can occur, like fire, water, leakages, or whatever, and what are the actions that staff should be taking. And we've also acquired what we call emergency kit, collections emergency kits, and we've placed them at strategic locations around the storage areas. These are like what you call a starter pack in case, let's say, some emergency occurs. Staff can then endeavor to do the first cut of remedial actions. And we've also recently, this happened about 2 years ago, we've decided that we will identify within the rare collection about top 20 rare items that we would like to save in a crisis. And these are kept at an easy to reach shelf within the rare book room. But of course, staff are told that in the first place, if a crisis occurs, they have to save themselves. If, let's say, they know that the situation is safe, then they will have to go on to save the books. Okay, these are actually very operational activities that we do at the National Library. Since 2008, the rare items have been designated as heritage assets. It's like the physical assets that you see, but these are called heritage assets because they are library items. So what happens is, in order to ensure that there are no missing items, we do monthly internal audits, which are done by a staff who doesn't have access to the room or the keys to the room, to the cabinets. And we also every year undergo an annual finance audit. Because they are considered heritage assets, we have to submit a list of new inclusions into the collection every year to finance, which will be audited by an external auditor. And we also have a regular collection stock take. For rare, it's done annually. And for the special collections, it's done every 2 years. This is to track whether there are any missing items. For the rare collections, we also have a movement list to track the movement of rare items. Of course, we want to keep the rare items and the special collections safe, but in order to provide access to them, we also have to do some publicity and promotion using these collections, because we can't always keep these collections locked up in storage areas, in a dark environment, and not provide access, because then it defeats the advocacy purpose. Because we, by showing the management and the public that we have these rare collections, we are able to get sometimes funding to ensure that that will help us in preserving the items better. So whatever rare items and special collection items that have been digitized are featured in the online platform called the NL Online, and the librarians are also asked to write about these collections in our quarterly journal called BiblioAsia. We also feature the items, the rare items, and the special collection items at exhibitions, where we also provide guided tours to public. We also loan them to other institutions, and we have been regularly featuring them in our social media postings as well. And we also encourage the librarians to give monthly talks on the collections that they are dealing with. This will be my last slide, and I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges that we encounter, which I think is something that libraries and institutions all over the world may be encountering. And it's the first thing is, of course, finding a balance between preservation and access while meeting the needs of the users. Or as much as possible, we want to keep the items in a safe environment, but at the same time, because we have to allow for these items to be researched by our researchers, we have to bring them out. So we always are trying to find a balance for that. And we also have to ensure that items are secure and properly preserved. And so we have to constantly remind staff and our users of proper handling guidelines, especially for the special collections item, because they are in a semi-restricted area where more staff can access them. We have to keep telling staff not to just take the items from the shelf without noting down, that they have loaned it. And of course, another key challenge that we have is the space and storage constraints, especially for storing large, oversized or odd-sized items. And now we find that the library is getting, especially through donations, a lot of mixed materials, items which are not just paper-based, but it could have photographs, it could have some artifacts inside. So we need to also look at how we are going to store and provide access to them. And another challenge we have is a lot of the processes that we do now are all manual, because we have an integrated library system, but what we lack is an automated system like the museums to manage and track rare materials. We are still, this is a project that we have been looking at, because we have to work with our IT side to ensure that whatever system that we are asking for will, be in line with whatever is already there in the library. And another question that we've been asking is, because we stopped stamping these books, these special collections and rare materials, and we are now thinking whether we need to mark them in some way to facilitate identification. Of course, digitizing will help, because then you will know what the item looks like, but we're also thinking about whether we should do a kind of stamping that doesn't affect the book in order to identify it in future. And of course, for digitization, we do have problems in scanning fragile items or those with tight binding. And we are, of course, looking at doing photography for those. And this is, of course, a perennial concern that staff have when they are handling dusty and old books, because when we get donations, some of the books tend to be dusty and old, so it's another concern. And one of the problems that we've had is, because ever since we've had to implement the 2-key system, we've always had to have 2 staff from the rare team to access the rare book room when we want to retrieve a rare item. So this has been a bit difficult, but we are coping. So thank you for listening, and that's it. Thank you.
Megas, for a very insightful talk, highlighting the best practices being adopted at the most premier National Library of Singapore for handling the rare and the special collections. We were just wondering, Megas, would it be possible for you to show online the digital preservation of these rare collections, rare and special collections? Because we know you have the NL Online that you have also highlighted. Would
Yes.
it be possible to just get some good glimpse of some of the rare and special collections and how those initiatives have been taken up at National Library of Singapore? If you can just get some glimpse, and because that would definitely make things much more inspiring for everyone. So if it's visible enough, we would really appreciate that.
Yes, I've just got it on my slide. Would I be able to share it now?
Yeah. Yes, we are able to see it.
Okay, so this is the National Library Online. Previously, it was called Book SG and was actually disparate modules. But now we decided to put all the formats that we have digitized within this website. It was just done about last year, I think, and it's called the National Library Online. So you can see we have digitized not just books, maps, ephemeral items, and we also have some audios and videos which we have digitized, and some documents and manuscripts as well. And whatever articles that we write about, the librarians write about, are also available here. So all the digital content has been put onto one platform called the National Library platform. And this is how it will look like. So I'm going to go into maps because I'm a maps librarian and I love maps. Okay, so I'm going to show you maybe one of the older maps. You can search for it. So this is, so if you have, you can have like, you can just click on it and it will download in here, or, okay, let me go on to another one. Okay, I'm looking for a map, but these are mostly maps that are digitized within books.
Is it available in the open access, or is it with a restricted access?
It's open
only?
access. No, it is open access. You can
content is open access. Tag content, the digital content that you have made of rare collections, is it open access, or is it
it's open
like
access.
a paid?
You can find it online.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, yes. Except for the e-resources, you wouldn't be able to see it, but these are open access. You can actually view it. And 252 of our maps, the maps that we digitized, right, have also been placed on Wikimedia Commons. So you can actually download it and use it because these are copyright free. So you can, it's from our David Perry Southeast Asia collection. You can download them and use them for whatever purposes. So this is one of the oldest collections we have, 1574, as you can see here. This is one of the 1574 map that's of Southeast Asia, which you can see India at the top here. It's India and China and the Middle East. Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to show you anything more?
That's great. I think, since it's in the open access, each one of us would really like to dwell more into it online ourselves.
Yes.
But that's, we truly appreciate, because we do see at times the libraries, though they do house that they have made these rare collections digitized, but it's against even a paid subscription. They really want you to subscribe, or to pay pay-per-view options. For that matter, even in country like India also, we do have some of the most prestigious collections, but they're under lock and key still. Means, even if they have digitized it, but they really want you to pay, if they want to have. So that's the reason we were more inclined to know, is it, means National Library has made it available in the open access, and that's commendable, because that really makes it as a global resource and a free resource, and strengthening that resolve to share that knowledge. And that's really heartening to know, Magus, and thank you so very much. Truly appreciated.
Thank you.
As we may like to take the questions once once we have presentation by Heather, and then for both of you, each of our attendees may really like to come back, and then they would be, wanting to get all their clarifications.
All right.
So thank you very much once again, and I'm requesting those of our colleagues over here who have joined in person to give a round big applause, to Magus, and those who are online. We have truly appreciated, admire, and I do hope that the big applause, that through our electronic transmission, it's being able to get conveyed to you. Magus, thank you very much. Truly admire and appreciated your sharing your vast intellect and also your expertise and the commendable work. National Library, as I indicated, we ourselves have seen way back in August 2005, and it was just inaugurated a month before. In July 2005, our founder and myself, I remember we went, and what a marvelous work. You're setting in great examples, and it's something to be really that yes, we have a national library who is not only scaling greater heights, but setting in some of the best examples for the world, not for this region, but for the world. So we wish you the very best, Magus, and thank you so very much for being there. And we request you to kindly do stay tuned in, because we are going to come back, after Heather's presentation. Thank you very much once again, Magus. We admire and appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. To the second presentation of this international symposium, as we have just seen the vast collections, the rare collections, the special collections at National Library of Singapore, and also Magus has highlighted, how they are also trying to handle these situations, the collections, and especially for ensuring for the disaster management. We have a renowned global with us. We are feeling so very happy and blessed to have Dr. Heather Brown here with us, a great friend for DELNET, a great friend for the entire ALIA fraternity in India. It's always such a great pleasure to have you, Heather, and thank you so very much for being able to take out time for us. You know that you are the one who always accommodates us, and we greatly admire, and we greatly, always express a warm sense of gratitude to you for keeping us so very close in your thoughts. So thank you very much indeed. It's a profound privilege for me now to request Dr. Heather Brown, a person of her great standing, doesn't really need any formal introduction, but I will just make an humble attempt to make you all know that Dr. Heather Brown is a librarian, sector standards and education at the Australian Library and Information Association. And Dr. Heather Brown here. Heather's background is in collection preservation, and she has previously worked as a preservation manager at the State Library of South Australia and as an assistant director at ArtsLab Australia, one of the Australia's leading conservation organization. Heather has also delivered lectures on preservation issues to university students and colleagues across Australia and internationally, with a focus on India. Heather's research interests are in the interrelationships between physical and digital preservation. A focus area of her research is an integrated approach to disaster management that links physical and digital collections. Heather has also co-authored ALIA's Disaster Management Guide and Template Plan, as one of the contributors to UNESCO's training toolkit for disaster risk management of documentary heritage and digital archives. It's a profound honor and pleasure for me now, Heather, to request you to deliver your address, which is on building resilience, a new UNESCO toolkit for faster disasters. It's over to you, Heather. Thank you so very much once again.
Thank you. And also, we are old friends, not in age, but in time. And Magus is an absolute star. So
if you do get to go to Singapore, please take the opportunity to go to the National Library and have a look at the rare books section. Also, thank you for having me here. And I would just like to say that India is the home of my heart. So I have come home to join you. I will just wait for a moment as we adjust the echo.
It's coming back again and again. It's getting echoed.
Okay, so I should begin. So I shall commence and talk about building disaster resilience. And I'm hoping that there isn't another person.
Yes, that's what it's creating a
Echo.
It's getting echoed. Just
1, 2. 1, 2. It is better. Echo. So while we are waiting for this to get sorted, I'll ask you to think about some disasters.
This seems to be a, we're into the.
And we're having one now.
Yes. It's getting echoed. Just allow me a minute. Just for a second, there seems to be because there's an echoing coming.
It's little echo. Is that better? No. When I was a child, I used to do this.
I'm sorry, there seems to be an issue in the echoing.
Plan B.
Just request you to please stay tuned in. It is now happening. Peter, would you like to change and be here? And this is your presentation. Perfect. Yeah.
So, as I said at the beginning, India is the home of my heart. And I do leave my heart here each time I come. So you please take care of it for me until I come back next time. So one of my
Favourite subjects.
in the sense that absolutely critical is the subject of disaster management. Doing every day in our library to provide access, to rate the collections, to manage them, to care for them. Everything that Margit was talking about, everything we do, all of that is destroyed in an instant. Disasters are at the centre of my attention.
That one now. This one is not advancing. Look at you advancing. Okay, next slide. So, a disaster.
We'll try again. Yeah. So we'll go back to the beginning and say everything that we do can be completely destroyed in the event of a disaster. What? Nowadays, what I call the big blockbusters. You see them on the news? The images of, I remember one a couple of years ago in Kashmir and floods. And I've seen floods in Kerala, floods in Chennai because it's quite low lying and the drainage isn't so good. I've waded through floods. And fires that have destroyed collections. They're the big blockbusters. Can be small events. Drip, that can happen. COVID. Remember our collections were closed? We came back over the top with leaking. There was mold that had spread. Or there were insects that had stuck in during the time we were away and starting little termites. So now the next slide says that then disasters are. First, describes what's happening now on two levels. So the first level, or the first, I suppose, factor that makes we're right in the middle of it. It's called now an era of disaster. Consecutive disasters. They're simultaneous. One disaster cascades off another. Australian experts who's also worked internationally. But he worked interestingly. He's working at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. That was a thing. Important disasters are, and the next slide, picking up now the literature that's saying cultural heritage organizations. This slide, some of you may have seen before. It's one of my unfavourite slides, but it's a place in Australia, in New South Wales. It's an area called Lismore. When Australia was settled by the Europeans, and the conversation with the original people, the Aboriginal people said, "Don't build here. This area, knowledge is this area gets flooded." What do we do? And so floods have come. With climate change, the floods are unprecedented. You see Lismore Public Library with fantastic beasts that aren't totally covered in mud. Then I live in South Australia. Adelaide, the capital of South Australia. And the last 2 years, I've been involved in a project of disaster training for small organisations. We've got a grant for that. And the larger organisations tend to be looked after by an organisation called ArtLab Australia, where I've previously worked. But it's these small organisations, public libraries with local history collections, little museums, volunteers, and they have incredible. So here's one that we were training at this year. It was at Berry Library. Berry's in our Riverland area. The River Murray comes through there, and there's lots of citrus fruit. It's a disaster. You can see the person's hand there collecting the hail and the damage that's been done to that little library. Next. There is a large collection of one of the cultural institutions in Adelaide. I'm not going to name it. You see the top, what's protecting it, because when there's surges of floods and heavy rain, the gutters fill out and you've got these leaks happening. So the second factor, apart from these digital disasters and especially hacking, we'd all be knowing about the British Library last October, and still parts of the British Library are not accessible. A major disaster for an organisation that on the face of it, thought they had a lot of good security. At the same time, it's not so well known, but the Library of Congress was targeted by the same organisation, and the disaster was prevented because they had multi-factor authentication. Next. Most of you will have caught up with the fact that even the Internet Archive is not immune from hacking. So, all of the libraries that are connected through DELNET, when I was just conferring with Sangeeta about DELNET and what I should say, last little point is Sangeeta's. Huge resources in your library, huge resources pertaining to institutional memory, your collections that relate to the memory of your organisation. And I was just thinking of a few libraries that I have visited over the years, Indira Gandhi Centre's libraries, the Asiatic Society Library, and so forth. So, so many of these amazing collections. NIFT, the National Institute of Fashion Technology, has a brilliant collection of textiles, absolutely unique. And the CGLA Government Library have amazing collections. What about the repositories in university libraries? Amazing, amazing collections, let alone the manuscripts that are in libraries, archives, museums, religious organisations. Next. Also hybrid, that is, they're digital and physical. So think for a moment what's unique and what, because that's really important in a disaster. So think of the disasters that have happened to your library, even the small ones, because they're the clue to what's going to go wrong in the future. What are the risks that you can think of? Your library have a disaster plan. Sometimes it's called a DRM plan or disaster risk management plan. Singapore's got one. So we're or was doing a, I suppose, what would you call it, a scan of the region. Not good news. More than half of across the world of the memory institutions, libraries, archives, museums, galleries, more than to have a plan. And that first comment that I made, everything we do can unravel like that during a disaster, but we're not really doing a great job, are we? In that over half of the organisations lack a plan. Those words are in the front of the new UNESCO toolkit. It's a lack of skills, a lack of training, and a lack of resources. And the words at the end they're a threat to the preservation of unique records, and I'd replace records with knowledge. Comes the UNESCO Disaster Training Toolkit, which has been funded by a Japan organisation, and the idea was to make this toolkit for trainers to train others. And a group of experts, people with knowledge in disasters of collections and how to prevent them, came together to put together that toolkit. Next. So the approach is simple and practical. But fixed learning modules, self-assessment tools, training exercises, and also the most important thing is that it doesn't reinvent the wheel. So there's lots of resources out there so that you'll find links to them. And one of the ones that is used very heavily is the Australian Library and Information Association, ALIA, their resources. So the toolkit follows a structure. You notice Marjessa's structure of the 4 stages of disaster management. Sometimes they have different names. Here's one of my colleagues from Art Lab. She's very cheeky, Kristen Phillips, and she's modelling her latest fashion apron that says prevention, preparation, response, and recovery. So the UNESCO toolkit also follows those stages. Features, there's 7 I want to talk about quickly. 7 features, because I like the number 7, and it's auspicious anyway. So first of all, it's grounded in real life experience and also research. So it hasn't been put together by someone sitting in an ivory tower. It's people who've got their hands dirty and wet in a disaster. And there's research sitting behind it. The connections between digital and physical, which happens to be one of my favourite subjects too, is on prevent and prepare. Just said, better to put the emphasis, prevention is better than cure. Next, wider context, and I'll talk about that later. Connects with, Jess was talking about that already this morning, the significant collection of salvage priorities, and Singapore got it down to 20. The UNESCO toolkit also connects with traditional techniques, and that's really important in India because there's a fantastic tradition of traditional techniques for caring for manuscripts and other materials, and other countries do too. And also, it's adaptable. It uses in, I suppose, teaching education methodology, it's inductive learning from the story or the object, then the principles come. It has region who came together to put together the toolkit, and in the front row, right in the middle, is Dr. Achal Pandya from IGNCA, who's leading India's contribution. We are doing India's training in Allahabad Public Library. We're launching it. Next. So the toolkit has real life scenarios on the left-hand side, one from Japan. Very neat recovery, isn't it? I always see that Japanese response is very organised and systematic. And on the right-hand side, there's a little case study from Australia. It's from the State Library of Queensland, which is built a river that floods all the time. So a story about lessons learnt and being relearnt
because their biggest risk is being built on the banks of a river that floods. Next. Especially, as I said, connects disaster management of digital and physical collections to provide a model for disaster plans that one-stop shop. Next. Because part of the research that backs that up is that in the past, very recently, disaster plans have been divided. So when organisations say they have a disaster plan, and particularly, I'll admit this was part of my PhD research when I did the interviews, looked at the literature, it was largely focused on physical collections. There was a lot of good work going on in the IT area, often in the heads of the IT staff. They weren't connected. So the UNESCO Toolkit brings those two together. Next. So you can see that chapter. Next. So what came before the UNESCO Toolkit, and that was one of the products, the practical products. My PhD research was putting together the disaster resources for the Australian Library and Information Association, ALIA. And so a lot of the ALIA resources are used in the UNESCO Toolkit. On the left-hand side, the one with the brownie cover, that's more a guide and an overview. On the right-hand side, a template for a disaster. And organisations have diced it, sliced it, cut it, snipped it with a snipping tool, and helped draw some resources out of that to help them put together their disaster plan. So, prevention is better than cure, and that's the emphasis of the UNESCO Toolkit. Next. So, what happens in prevention? Basically, taking the pulse. Organisation. If you're the State Library of Queensland, your biggest risk is going to be flood. It's going to be dust and mice plagues. So the disaster plan will be tuned. There's a quiz, right? Risk level and lots of activities. And remember, I've been involved in doing some training with staff from little museums. Here's one on the left. You can see they're volunteers, some of them quite elderly, happily doing, it's not hard. Feedback from them was saying, you know, it's simple, but we found risks we didn't know before. That group was in the mid-north of Australia, and there was a tree branch in the gutter outside, which they hadn't noticed. The bushfire threat, it's going to block the gutter and cause a flood. And you could see where the water had run down inside. And also on the right-hand side, here we are helping them look through the contents of some of the equipment you might use. You can see a bin. That's not expensive. And in there are some supplies that we can use during a disaster. Next. Then part of the requirement of the training didn't come free. They had to do a disaster plan. That was the deal. Otherwise, they couldn't join. Now, this one is Port Adelaide Public Library. That's a little metropolitan public library. It's not very big. Their disaster plan's probably 10 pages. And they put that together this year. Terrific. And just training the ALIA resources, which also feed into the UNESCO Toolkit. So if they can do it, you can do it. Next. So real life case studies and stories. And here's Achal Pandya. Have you heard about the Reorg project? Now I sound like I'm selling again. It works particularly with organisations that have storage that's a mess. I'll share that some of the libraries I've worked in previously have had terrible mess in the storage area, particularly government publications, which didn't get used for a while. So here's our child with a museum collection. Left side, it's a mess. You can't even anything if you can't even get in. You don't even know what's there. So the real project is designed to help sort this kind of disaster, and that it's not just in India, this happens all around the world. So lessons from these stories, and you think, oh, well, this was set in India, they can be applied across organisations. Here's our child's case study of the Albert Hall Museum flood. That I think a mummy had to be brought out from the basement, and of course they had their precious collections in the basement. So sharing the stories, inductive learning, as I said before, building from the community is part of the UNESCO Toolkit. And this is a really interesting story from Vanuatu. When they're building their new archives building, they're talking with the locals and building in the locals' traditional knowledge of building design. They didn't just whack something from a Western country and said, oh, you know, we'll build it like this because this will be solid. They actually listened to the locals, and that particular building did very well during a cyclone. So it's integrating traditional knowledge as well. So here's that same little museum that had the tree branch. And you can see, again, as my mother would say, they're not spring chickens. They're people who are fantastic volunteers, and they're looking at the risks in their library. Digital and physical. Why have I got the USB there? Why have I got the pen drive there? Because they asked them in their digital collections, what have you got? Digital. Oh, we've digitised photographs, we've got oral histories. And I said, oh, where is it stored? The answer was the pen drive. So my next question was, what I wasn't going to, they had to come up with an answer. What do you think the risks are? And then they worked out, they might get an external drive. In fact, they might get two. And in fact, we might work with, in South Australia, we have a council. We might work with the council and they'll back it up. So they worked that out. That went in their disaster plan. The context include all of the collections management tips and processes that Mark Jess was talking about. And that's where real comes in too, because if your collection's in a mess, you've got to sort it. Also, interestingly, this is the what I call the political part of disaster plan. It doesn't sit by itself. If you can leverage, you can maximize the visibility of that disaster plan further up in the management chain and get it that acknowledged in the risk management. Is that a term that's used in India? Risk registers. So once you can get your disaster plan visible, then it has to be recognised. Then you've got a lever to pull for resourcing. So embed your disaster plan and get buy-in and get the disaster plan signed by up. So they're taking responsibility for it. And also link with the section. There's one lovely story, a small city public library did training about a month ago. There was a sort of a little war between the library and the IT section. The IT section hated the library's digital collections that were taking up too much space. So when the librarian went away, the IT manager JPEGs, TIFFs were those quality digital images have to be redone. So that relationship with IT and with facilities, the people who look after the buildings is absolutely critical. That's what I mean by these links, you know, and connection. Disaster plan doesn't sit by itself. It's all the bits that make it work. And let's not forget emergency services. Next. Significant collections, we've talked about those, and particularly what Marjess has said with the National Library of Singapore. And also, if you've got your top 20 items listed, they're a burglar's delight, aren't they? So your disaster. Where are those top 20 items? So some of the smaller libraries where we did the training, they actually had their significant items together. And I think that's what the National Library of Singapore said. They were on a low shelf, all in one place. The last library I was at, they had a spot in their compactor shelf, but they didn't, only the staff knew what that, a few staff knew what that spot meant. Where are they on the floor plan so you can find them quickly? Next. Between physical and digital when things have been digitized. So just got a significant original manuscript, no copy, it's significant, probably going to be a priority in a disaster. Probably something that you'll salvage. Next. Your significant original manuscript has become badly burnt in a disaster. You've got a quality digital copy. Is it? Yes, no. And see how the debate will come. But understand working through that in your after happens. Otherwise you're caught in the middle like a rabbit in the spotlight. So you've got to see that connection between physical and digital collections, and knowing what's been digitized, what's got other surrogate copies is really important. Next. The quizzes. Here's an example. We would say, give a slide with some examples and say, what would you rescue first? And that's a question about significance, and people don't have the context, and it's a good group exercise because you have them fighting it out. And what happens if people don't know what's significant is that they'll pick their favourite item, and it may not be the one to rescue. Earlier, and as I said, Dr. Achal Pandya has a whole little section on that, and India is a world leader in this area, particularly Dr. Periasamy from the south of India. Next. Last point. Flexible. And extract from the UNESCO toolkit from other country case studies, which give principles to learn from. Little charts like the immediate actions. That's one that Art Lab uses. For the cleaners who come in, who are you going to call? Because the cleaners are the people who usually find the leaks. And the induction that goes on when you have new staff. Next. So as I said, India's launching the disaster toolkit next week. And Dr. Gopal Shukla has put together a program for us. So we'll learn from that, what went well and what we do differently next time. Next. So summary, 7 points: real life experience, interconnected, that emphasis on prevention and preparation. Next. The context. Otherwise, it has no impact and you won't get support from across the organisation. So don't forget the traditional techniques in Australia. We have to connect with the knowledge of our original people, our Aboriginal people. They have, and remembering it's flexible and adaptable. Next. The risk. Does your library have a plan? Take first step towards a plan. check out some of those resources. And next, dodging, that will be a good way of dodging faster disasters. And next, this is where I leave it on an up note for further chapters in this story from DELNET. And I have the references at the end.
Thank you very much, Nika, for an outstanding, brilliant presentation. As always, you carry so much of experience with you, and our listening from you is not always. You really feel like, you know, that you should keep on, you know, telling it to us, show us. You remain as a guiding light. I would just like to mention that the last slide that you have, stay tuned with DELNET, and what really inspired us, and this has been on our agenda. Even very recently, we have sent across a survey to our institutions on a couple of things. And at the back of our mind was also to ask them about this disaster plans. What are the disaster plans? Because we also, as a network, 9,000 plus institutions, and it's not only those 9,000, we work for the entire country as such, and not only in India, also wanting to share, we have good numbers outside in other. Really like to take a lead on this, and may like to start off by, firstly, we can have a phase-wise. I would be seeking your advice, and also of Dr. Achal Pandya and other colleagues over here, and those who are being spearheading, you know, these projects, especially the UNESCO and even others. And in the first go, we can have a phase-wise kind of a work being done. And at the very first instance, we may like to conduct a survey across, as you have mentioned that you already have done, and you showed it that how 60% they lack that disaster recovery plans. And I think if you think about a country like India, even the percentage would be much higher, those who really lack. And it's not just lacking a plan, it is basically lacking that mindset, you know, means how much thinking has gone into, because we have just seen it. I think there cannot be anything better than the session wherein we were really struggling hard to see to how to carry on. And that is, as you rightly said, you know, this continuity of business, you know, that remains. So we also, when we are doing the program, so you have a plan B in place. So we were struggling with this because since it's in a hybrid mode, we also want that, you know, in person everything works, and then also to get broadcasted online. So this is the plan B. But when we think about in libraries, or not even, we have to go beyond the libraries. It is, as you have dwelt at length about institutional memory when you think about. So libraries remains as the gateways, libraries remains as we as a professionals have to also sensitize our own policy decision makers in our respective institutions about it. And because we remain, you know, as we each one of us knows that without libraries, without preserving that past, you know, you cannot think about building your future. So you are building up your future on the past and the current. So the current time remains as a connecting cord. So the past is there, the future, you know, we want to take everyone, but what are we doing right now in the current phase? So DELNET may like to really work as an interface by firstly conducting, it's not just simply having a survey done, because therein also we would like to see, we have recently asked the institutions about what kind of special collections, and you'll be amazed to know, even a science college we think about, we talk about an engineering college, it's not only the institutions having that the memory institutions, there are, every institution has got their, besides a so-called very special and rare collections, but they do have, you know, not much of content that which is belonging to that institution, and they want to maintain it as an institutional memory. So we have to really sensitize the institutions and practically do an them. There can be a classification of 8-10 different categories. As you are just have mentioned, next week you are doing that workshop, international workshop on disaster management, maybe focusing on manuscripts, maybe focusing on the rare books. But besides that, also there's lot much of this now, this digital content which is there, and you yourself have holding such a great experience of bridging up the physical and the digital. So it's not only the physical as such, the material which is being there, but also the digital. So even the same content, you have shown it, those burned books, the rare books. So one is, do we have a copy of that? And even if you have a copy, so there is a two-stage, concern. One is of that physical, the document that you had. So once, have you done anything? Even once you have done the digital version, so have you safeguarded, that too? And also the format is again another issue which remains, the accessibility. Maybe right now you have done, but those standards would go away, and even otherwise practically, to take care of. I think you have given us some new direction to set in. The last slide, we would like to make a beginning, with that last slide of yours, which is always because this brings in, a scope for greater new possibilities to work on. This has been our concern, and to sensitize at large, to work together, and to also highlight the best practices. So we may have 8-10 different category of institutions, wherein we may have an institutions who are typically the institutions which are dealing with they're the rare libraries. They may have very specialized kind of, but there can be different categories, and then accordingly we will work. So there can be special programs which are applicable to all of them. There may be special programs which are just applicable to two set of those institutions. So we can only can convey here that we are really would be wanting. It's not only the desire and will, but we typically on the ground, we would like to do something, and in order to sensitize the professionals, and also to do a hand holding with them in helping them out. Like, even through this platform, we have been wanting to conduct a survey basically, but since this is in hybrid, but we are going to do that. Even how many of us have been knowing about the UNESCO toolkit? When we had given this an invite, there have been a number of professionals, who wrote back and saying that, ma'am, can we download this UNESCO's toolkit? So it's not just simply there has to be continuous moment. This has to be taken more as a mission. It's not just simply a one time. It's not just simply having a deliberations done. There has to be a kind of a movement done for sensitizing on disaster recovery, preparing for the future, that preparedness to come, and also to sensitization not only of our library professionals and all, but as an organization. And there cannot not only in the organizations, again, everything rests with the libraries. There are certain sectors that, as you have also mentioned, that the even disaster recovery plans, even if they won't like to share it with others, to keep it confidential. And there can be, because the digital, for example, and there is a huge debate, because if you are telling to the people, we had some of a very distinguished, I don't name it, who was a cybersecurity expert, organization was mentioning that what all kinds of things that they are doing on a platform, in order to safeguard their their digital assets. And now think, if you make it so open, so it is like telling it that these are all the kind of things we are doing. So if someone wants to hack through their, these are, so we have even small, as rightly you have said, Heather, that those plans have to be also very confidential in nature. There are lot much, especially when we think about the digital plans. You cannot tell it to the people that what kind of entry intrusion systems that you have done, because someone who wants to, they would really now think, oh, you have got this, we will now think about it. So we would be, our colleagues, we have our organizations around, but I think let's take a resolve through this international symposium, that to work collectively, collaboratively, cohesively, and to create it more as an ongoing movement, to see to it, and to have the collaborators. Let's have collaborating institutions who have already done, the professional colleagues to come together. And more so, my takeaway from this particular, such a brilliant deliberations that you and Megas has been able to contribute so immensely to this is we will create a massive online portal to start off, a portal for disaster risk management, wherein a lot much of material that we are going to put in. Simultaneously, we'll work on also conducting this survey across the institutions. You create not only just as a text material, but also to work on organizing the webinars, programs as a focused area. One of the verticals, for our main work would definitely be, because this is have to really think about building up. It's not that what we are doing right now, and we have to, get into this new phase. So thank you very much, Heather. This a kind of, I would say, not only an engaging and an enriching, but also has being a more thought-provoking, address of yours, and you always inspires us, and do keep on coming back to India more often. Don't let us to wait for the yes, yeah. This is what Heather, what are you doing in Australia? You are an Indian, what you are doing there. And we have such a great regard, a warm regard, and it's something beyond an expression. And thank you so very much, Heather. A big round of applause. We cannot, thank you enough for being such an extraordinary, not only a professional, but such a wonderful human being. And you always is the one whom we hold it in a great regard. You don't get many occasions, to do, but you always remain someone, whom your association is something which we always cherish a lot. Thank you so very much. And I hope Magus is there online. And Magus, thank you so very much. And we feel really blessed enough that the plan B worked, and we have been able to, it really gave us, a little bit of, and this is how the, and this is how each one of us has to be into this continuous learning. Once you are into, it's not waiting for, as Peter has said, the disaster to happen. When we anticipate that this may happen, be prepared enough. It should not take you by surprise. You should say, oh, I'm prepared enough. And one of your slides, it was such a meaningful one, even in a disaster, which one firstly to rescue, that's again very important. Which particular collections, or not only collections, even otherwise, what to save first.
And that was so difficult in those little community museums that have volunteers, and the volunteers would all have their favorite, and they want to rescue those, but they weren't significant. So very tricky. Yeah.
And that in libraries, we need to have a team, disaster recovery teams, professionals who are being assigned that in case of crisis, you are the ones who have to respond. So the respondents, has to be there. We have to prepare them for it. We have to really, and they should be the ones, who should be knowing that, what is the modus of operandi, in case of disasters.
And can I add, it's not hard. You saw the people in those slides. They worked out who was going to be on their team and who. So it's not that hard.
And thank you, Magus, for being there. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. We would now like to make the floor open for questions. And now again, the drill here is, that we will take one question here from our colleagues in person, and then we are going to go online for our colleagues who are being there. We have around a huge, large, good number of our professional colleagues who have joined us, 620 professionals who are being there right now. So we would like to make the floor question firstly, and I would be requesting colleagues over here who are here at New Delhi DELNET office, please kindly introduce, because everyone is going to hear you. And I'm also requesting my colleagues, if Kushal, you can move this camera so that our online colleagues can see also our colleagues here. Though we can't see you, those who are always good enough. Dinesh, I request you not to come in front of the camera.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Periasamy, and my old friend Heather for such a wonderful presentation and all. I have one question for Makeswary and as well as one question for Heather, probably both of them. Makeswary, you talked about the creation of surrogate copies. Exactly how you do that? Because we also have a rare collection, so that's a very interesting area to touch upon. So, and how do you prevent the digital from, if you make even the surrogate copies and all, how do you prevent the digital disaster? Or maybe how do you prevent the digital disaster in NLB? Because NLB is very known to me because my name is Shantanu Ganguly. I'm the director of the Ashoka University and library. And the thing is that I have been to NLB when, CEO, Nungpo was there, which I was invited to deliver talk there in NLB. So if you can, highlight how you do create those surrogate copies and all, that's number one. Number two question is to my friend Heather. Heather, I would like to know, is there any ISO standard for disaster risk management, especially for the rare collections and all? If it is there, you can let us know. And is there any course? I mean, course because it was done for this particular.
Oh, I think, we'll go firstly to Megas and then come back. Thank you so very much indeed. Megas, over to you.
All right. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, very much, Megas. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that question. Okay. First, when I spoke about surrogate copies, I was referring to mainly microfilm copies and the digital copies that we create when we are providing access to users and staff. Of course, when I first joined the library, we were only creating microfilm copies of the rare collections as well as the special collections items because they wanted to preserve the physical copy. Subsequently, we did hybrid scanning, which was we scanned once the item and then we created a microfilm copy from that, and then we created a digital copy from that. But from nowadays, we have stopped microfilming and we are just creating a digital copy. But when I'm talking about surrogate copies, I'm also looking at creating of facsimile copies because a lot of times we have to bring out some key of what you call common titles from the rare collection, especially if people want to see what's the oldest item in the collection or what are the key Singapore titles which are key to its development as a country. So there are some titles or items which we bring out often. So now what we are doing is we are trying to create what you call a facsimile copy of some of these items that we display often. So as much as possible, we would like to display the actual physical copies, but there are times in some situations where the conditions are not right. So we would like to actually just show the facsimile copies. So when I meant creation of surrogate copies, I was actually referring to the microfilm copies that we used to create and the current digital copies that we create of our own collections, as well as the facsimile copies that we are thinking of creating. All right, at this point, I think I also would like to clarify that Dr. Sangeeta was asking me about whether these digital copies available on NL Online are freely accessible. Yes, they are freely accessible to the public, and because we only put up those that are copyright free. So even there are items within the rare collection and special collections which we digitize, but we are unable to show it on the online platform because of copyright restrictions. As a library, we have to follow these fair use, that is stated in the copyright law. But I also want to clarify that the library does subscribe to content, but these are only available to library members because the library actually pays for subscription. So what we digitize from our own collections, we make it accessible freely on NL Online platform as long as they are copyright free. But we also decided we had to fight with the legal officer for this, because the legal officer was very strict about providing access to digitized content that is not copyright free. So what we did was we asked for a standalone computer within the library itself, where patrons can come and look at content that where the copyright is it's not out of copyright, the content, but which the patron can look at within the library premises itself. It's not a totally win-win situation, but at least it helps us to preserve the collections, especially if some of the collections are off-site, and retrieving them takes about 3 to 5 business days, and the patron cannot wait. So this is one of the things that we have done. And as for your question on how digital preservation is done, I'm actually not very familiar with that because I don't handle it, being a more of a rare collections library in charge of the physical collections. But what happens is for digital preservation, we have to work very closely with the IT department. Okay, so it is something that I think Dr. Sangeeta also brought up, that you can't just do it alone. You have to be in what you have to make love, not war, with all the people. And in my case, we have to be very friendly with the finance people, procurement people, with the IT folks, with the building people. There are times when you get very there are times when you get very frustrated because sometimes you cannot move things and you want something and they say, no, you can't get it. But to answer your question, for digital preservation, it's done by IT department. And I know that they do it via the system called Rosetta, where they have the master copies that they digitize. You know, when they digitize the content, right? The master copy, I believe, is in TIFF. I think I may be wrong. These are kept in a system, in a separate system. And then there is an access system, which staff will have access to download what you call the accessible digital copy. So I believe they have their own, the IT department has their own way of preserving it. And whenever, of course, whenever there are requests for images, then we do allow these images, but the images are, of course, given at a cost. I hope that answers your questions. If not, then you could always email me and then I can find out more. Thank you.
Very much, Magus, for an exhaustive response. And this has also again led to too many other takeaways from your deliberation, your response. And thank you very much indeed. I think many more are. And yes, now Heather, has to respond to the 2 questions. So one was whether we have an ISO standard for disaster management, and that to handling, especially the rare collections, or even otherwise for disaster management. And number 2, for the training sessions, training courses.
Yeah. The short answer is I'm not aware of one. However, the one that I refer to is the ISO standard for risk management. It's the language of risk management is excellent for the wider collections because you're tuning the language of the plan and what you need to safeguard the collection to the organisation's finance people, strategic planners. So that's my best advice. Also want to take the opportunity to talk about, just very briefly, to highlight a couple of points. Fantastic risk management processes in place in Singapore. Donations come into collections. Don't they come in with silverfish? Don't they come in with other creatures? So Magis talked about a process they have. It's very sophisticated. You take the oxygen out, anoxic treatment and put in. But in little small public libraries, they have a black plastic bag and they just don't accept into the collection immediately. Otherwise, they'll have an infestation. So terrific processes. Don't bring food in. Handling processes. Who's allowed to go in? You're not allowed to have water. All those kinds of things are part of the risk management. That's risk of disasters. It's a brilliant, I have to say, Magis, hats off. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Heather. So yet another takeaway from this, while I think the more we talk, the more we are getting into the desperate need to do something in this particular area. And what I can think about is that DELNET would be happy to organize not only a national as an international conference on disaster management in libraries and archives. And when we think about, means it will be a very broad spectrum, that we are going to bring in. The content, preservation, the document preservation, means preservation both for physical as well as the digital, and more for the digital also now it remains, because how to bring in, and we would be happy to think about holding that heater. So can I ask you how you're placed next year in the month of August, September?
The magic carpet to India.
I think we are highly about it. This has been our priority area to work on disaster management. And because if we have, say, for another 8 months time with us to work on this, by that time we will make some good portal on the disaster management. We will also run this survey across the institutions. So it will be an international conference to hold here, and we'll invite our colleagues. Magus is here, you are here already. We have the speakers with us. Audience is already ready. The professionals each one of us are ready to do it. And then let's bring in many more. And just to share, we can. It is getting started. Yes. So. Yes, it is both are open, so it's coming back again. That's a reason. Yes. Yeah, okay. The back is that's fine. So I think that we would be happy to. Again, it is both the systems are. The microphones were on, so because of that was happening. Both the laptops, the microphones were on, so that's how it was happening. So, so we would, I think, another takeaway is to let's think about holding a conference on this. Wherein a 2 days conference we can hold it, and wherein it will be a very focused kind of a conference, and let's bring everyone together, whosoever has already set in the best of the examples, and learners are always there. We all are being really wanting to take it to the next level. So thank you very much, Heather. So you are giving us enough of the things to carry on, and that's what I said. You always inspire us. So it's not just simply be set. You have to tell us the dates. When you want us to organize it. So the city of Delhi, we would prefer holding it. And we can do it in August and September. Just wanting to share next year, 26, 27, 28th of November, 2025, we are holding our 28th National Convention NACLIN at Bhubaneswar. It has just been decided, the dates have been decided just 4 days ago. And we are very much working hard to see to it to get our Honorable President of India to inaugurate the convention. So we are working for it, and we are pretty confident and hopeful and praying that we would be able to realize our dream of having our Honorable President. So that's being done in November. In April, let me just share this platform to inform all our other colleagues who are being there on this platform that in the month of April, middle of April, DELNET is holding a conference on the emerging trends and technologies in libraries in collaboration with IIIT Allahabad, one of our very reputed and eminent Prayagraj, the same city from where you are heading to now for holding the program. So that's in the month of April. We are holding exclusively that conferences on emerging trends and technologies, just to talk about emerging trends and technologies, and a 2 days conference. So later this evening, we are just finalizing. We have our the officials, the top officials, including director registrar, they're here. They are already having some meetings with others, and we are deciding about the exact dates and everything. So, and also to share before I forget, on 3rd of December, we are having the DELNET annual lecture, which will be delivered by Professor Amelie Drabinski, who is in immediate past president of American Library Association. And it's a wonderful title. The title is Sharing as
strength, sharing as strength, and libraries as connectors. And we request you, she will be here in person over here, and we request you for your presence, and also that would be broadcasted live. Now we are making the floor open for questions from our colleagues who may like, and this is, we would like to make the floor open for questions for our colleagues who are there online with us. Requesting you, please raise your digital hand so that we can pass on the baton to you and you may ask the question. This is for you, 607 professionals who are being there right now on the platform. Requesting you, please raise your digital hand if you want us. So I'm lowering your hand right now. This is for all of you, that those of you who who attends our session, this is how it happens. You can see this platform, that how it works. So I'm now going through, sifting through A to Z. So please raise your digital hand if you want us to get you connected with our distinguished speaker. We are left precisely with another 15 minutes time. It is it is right now for Magus. It is currently 3:15 in Singapore, 2.5 hours ahead of India. And so we'll be just taking 15 minutes more, Magus. Requesting you, please raise your digital hand. This is for our online attendees, that if you want to ask any question, and we are going alphabetically from A to Z, please let us ask any question, and we'll be more than happy to get you connected with our speakers over here. So this is for, if not, anyone in person over here like to ask a question, please raise your hands. If you have any of our colleagues, we have Rajiv here. Rajiv, just allow me a minute. I'm just trying to see if anyone of our online colleague may like to ask a question, and just allow, there is a camera here. I requesting all my colleagues not to come in front of the camera, because entire deliberations are getting recorded, and that will be available on the DELNET's YouTube channel. So we request you just allow me a second more, because we are just sifting through this entire list to see if anyone of our online attendee may like to ask a question. And so please kindly just allow me a minute more, and even a 30 seconds, half a minute would help. This is a little surprising. If you have raised your digital hand, that's what I was wondering, that this seems to have come in the end. Yeah. You see, so many are there who have raised. So I'm going alphabetically, and quickly would like Amos S. Amos, I have unmuted you, requesting you yourself. That's surprising enough. I have unmuted you, requesting you to unmute yourself and ask the question. I would just wait for 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So I have to mute you. This is how we do. We can't really, we are very impatient. I think we library professionals. Now here in comes for Nish Kumar. No, it's a turn now for our colleagues here. So Rajiv, please introduce yourself and ask the question.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Rajiv Mishra. India International Center. Very much. I have listened to the wonderful important collection. Have you installed? In that way, have you installed?
Insurance of the, okay, so this is for Magus? Yeah. Magus, a question for you. We have our colleague, Mr. Rajiv Kumar Mishra from India International Center, New Delhi, which houses one of the most rare collections. They have a very famous British collection, India collection, and also the Himalayan collection, which is being their rarest documents that they have. He's wanting to know, have you insured your rare collections and special collections? And do we have the insurance done? You know, is it possible, or in Singapore house a scenario, whether these documents are being insured? There's an insurance done. Whether any agency in Singapore, means it's not being known whether you have that kind of a prevalence in Singapore that the rare documents can be insured for a price, because ascertaining the price, the price of that rare collection, and then do we have, for example, this is for a disaster management, means for, you know, if it has been burnt out, or, you know, something has happened with the document, so is there any insurance cover which can be claimed? So would you like to say something, Maggie?
Okay, thank you for that question. I'm really happy you asked this, because this is actually one of the areas that the RARE team does. In fact, it's one of the core areas that is part of my work. For the rare collections, it's not just the rare collections. We actually insure all the collections in the National Library, including those collections that are off-site, which are our legal deposit collections and our repository collections. Okay, firstly, I will talk about the rare collections. Okay, so for ever since the rare collections were made heritage assets, we do not apply a standard price for all the items in the collections. What happens is, when we buy a rare item, we assign the price as the value of the collection, but we also have a certain processing cost that we affix to the value of the collection. So for example, if for that year we determine that the processing cost is about $300, processing cost involves the librarian's selection work, the whatever other cataloging costs, the preservation costs, or all that. Okay, so a digitization cost. So this will become the value of the collection. Then each item will be given a price based, a cost based on its price that we acquired it. For those items that do not have a price, let's say they were donated by somebody, or we found it in the existing collection and we decided to promote it to the rare collection, what we do is, the librarians in the rare team, we are not trained to do this, but we picked up the skills ourselves. We do the valuation for those items. We actually look at the market price of the item online. If we can't find an actual item, we just look at what you call a similar item. Then we assign the value, and these values are then totaled up. It becomes the insurance value. All right. For special collections, what I call the closed access materials, we have a standard value that we assign, because we cannot go around assigning values for all the items. There are just simply too many. Okay, and then for the open shelf items, mainly these are reference items, we also have a standard value for each item. And for maps, we have those that are not in the rare collection, we have a separate value by format. So all these values are totaled up, and we have an admin staff who takes care of this. So every year we actually review these values and see whether the values have increased, and we submit the new values to the insurance agent that the NLB has hired, and then the new insurance coverage will come on. In case of a disaster, this will be the amount the item is insured for. But bearing in mind, there are rare items, especially like manuscripts, which cannot have a value. I mean, they are priceless. How do you assign a value to that? This is a difficult thing to do, but we try as much as possible to assign a value. And it's not just the research value. We look at it in terms of significance and what it will fetch in the market. And we try and assign, get all these values consolidated together, and then we get management to approve the values. So before we submit the insurance value for rare collections, we actually get management to approve it, and then these are submitted. Hope that answers your question.
Add something. I think that's a brilliant question, because it shows that link, that wider link between disasters, significant collections, what is significant, because one of the criteria is value. And again, the link with this, sometimes you have to call them assets to tune the language to get the support. So I think it's a great question that illustrates that they're all connected.
Very much, Michael. Thank you, Heather, and thank you very much, Rajiv. You know, truly a brilliant question, because as you have said, Heather, that we have to use more of the word of the digital, not the digital content, use the word digital assets. And this is for your decision makers in your institution, your administrators. We have to tell them that this is an asset. It's not just simply a resource which we have, and we have to preserve this. You have to. And this insurance component is a very, very important thing. And I think, so it's like holistically, you have to look at the things, and then you have to set in the new trends. Because even how many, maybe I, person like me, I'm not much aware that how many of the insurance companies are there who are ready to do the insurance. How many of us here? Because, you know, don't have this question for the online, otherwise would have been able to get it from 650 plus, you know, our colleagues who are attended online. In this hall here, how many of you have got an insurance for your library materials? Can you just raise your hands? Very candid reply. How many of you have got, the library collections? Have you insured them? Have you insured the collections? Rajiv? Insurance you have done? You are paying a premium? You are paying a premium to them? Which company is it, like which insurance? That is like we do, you know, everyone does, you know, that your entire infrastructure. Yeah, we do that. But whether for the books have you done? Including books, and how what you have done, as Meg has also opined, that, you know, it's difficult for especially the rare collections to ascertain the price. Because yeah, that is a very major thing. You have a 17th century document, you know, who is going to ascertain what is the price? Because it cannot be substituted. It cannot be substituted. No, and you can't buy it. You can put a price, because, you know, the book has been lost, and you said, okay, you pay a fine or you bring back the book. So you have two options. Option is, you know, you pay or you bring back. No one can bring back. It's a rare, it's a special. No one, you know, you may have 5 copies across the globe which are being there in the library somewhere or in archives. So how you have done, Rajiv? In fact, it's a question being asked by you, but we are with the question. So how you have been watch, you know, what is the pricing of that rare collection? Let's say India collection, you have a British collection, you know, in that from the British Library. See, you have got a book of, let's say, 1857. You have a book of, let's say, you know, a British book, you know, of 1863 with you, right? So what is the price that you have given to your insurance? It's, oh, but still you will be the loser then. You will be the loser of the, you know, the collection as well as the loser. Yeah, it's difficult. I think this. Can you please, I request my colleagues to give the mic, and so that it can be heard by our online colleagues also.
One of my previous institutions, I had the similar problem. For one of the important component, which we didn't have a rare collection at that time, but the question was, what was the valuation of those resources? And we are unable to calculate. And there was a fight took place between us as well as with the finance team. What is that formula you have to calculate the valuation of it? Because building is different. But the
the building is different. It's a, you know, that as a whole we do, that's fine. A concrete, you know, brick and mortar you have made, or even, you know, you may have the IT infrastructures at your end, that's fine. But the rare and special, I think this is yet another, Megas, you would agree, and Heather, you would agree, because this is yet another important aspect that one has to think about, that how to really do the valuation, ascertain the valuation of that rare and special collection. and especially this is in context of, the insurance. If you want to have an insurance cover, and means we would say that, yes, this is a, but how those who are going to insure it, these companies, and what is a formula? As Shantanu has said, that is there any formula being there, that is a, any insights you may like to give me?
I'll say that in Australia, it is standard to have valuers come in and they charge, and they will usually, for example, go through, and they are authorised valuers, and according to their calculation, then the insurance is tuned to that. So the emphasis is given on the rare collections. One thing I think is a gap. Australia is valuing digital collections. The next big challenge. Particularly digitized collection, let alone born digital collections. I think it's an area to unpack and explore.
I think it's not only that, I'm thinking more now in terms of my conference. So this is like a different sessions, So already some 3-4 sessions we are able to, and this would be one of the session, how really to undertake this valuation of our rare and special collections, and also to initiate and ignite this idea of insurance cover. And we will involve some of the major big insurance agencies in India. We will call them, they're the top of the people, and to say that how, what kind of an arrangement can happen.
Could DELNET be a broker?
We are the ones who always look for those infinite possibilities, always look around. And our work remains network. You have on all the sides, we remain at the, and you bring everyone along, with you. So not just simply as a one, it's like the infinite, it's like an invisible. You be there, and you just keep on having this interconnection set with people. So that's dates, for September and October. Heather, I have already asked her, and we would really be happy to have this deliberations done in person as a conference, we'll hold it, because we could see that germination of lot many new ideas, which needs to be and has to, everyone, each one of us is answering for the questions that we are trying to look at, but also with the solutions, and to let those others, because the solutions doesn't lie, not all the answers are with us. We have to find the answers also from others. So I think it's better to take all stakeholders along, and then creating that kind of a safer ecosystem, for our library, securing. It's not only the safe past, for the future should remain, always our mission for doing. So thank you very much for this. I know that we have already now barging in Megas in your time. It's 1:05 here, and your time is, yes, it is 4 o'clock, 4:05, 4:05 Singapore time. Yes, we will just pick up.
It's 3:30.
And I can see there are not many. Please drop us an email. It's very unfair on our part, not to take, but because of positive time, but we are very happy to see that the session has generated much of curiosity. It has really been able to, this is what we have been wanting, that everyone should be, and that's really makes it as a knowledge engaging session. Everyone, each one of us have truly felt, truly illuminated and enlightened, with the deliberations of our distinguished speakers, and that, yes, each one of us felt there's a much to do, and each one of us also agrees with the fact that we have made a beginning today. We have made a fresh new beginning today to work constructively, on this disaster management in the libraries, handling our special rare collections. And this is just like, how the most priceless connections, no one can think about or can venture into or can dare to, we should be the one who safeguards that you cannot, no one can do the valuation, of those. But I think we have to take a lead in this and have to collectively, with our collective consciousness, has to get into to find the solutions and to practically do something in this regard. I would just like to request, because this is for all our colleagues who have raised the digital hands, we request you, please send us your questions, because we would really like to, perhaps we'll think about having a special forum created for this. It's like a joint forum, maybe by email, wherein we have everyone together in that. I think we would be very happy to do this. And this is a prelude to doing practically the things, and anyone and everyone. So, but right now we have around 650 plus who joined online, around 100 here. So we fairly have around 800 of the professional colleagues who have participated in the deliberations. So we'll create a web forum, immediate. This, wherein we would be, example, for a survey that we are thinking about here, we will just be requesting you also, just like everyone, give us the questions that you think, are something that we need to deliberate on. And collectively, let's make it highly knowledge sharing kind of a platform, and it becomes like a voice. It becomes like a, the voice for the profession, for the professionals, and then we will take it steadily. And yes, wherein we need that it has brought to the attention of certain, policy decision makers at some level, so it becomes like a voice. So it's not just simply as an individuals in the institutions. So let's make it as a voice for the profession, for the institutions, for the libraries, and DELNET will be more than happy, to really, do this work of bringing everyone together, and that remains our major mission. What's your input on this, Heather? Can we start off? Shall we start off this?
Yeah, I think in the past it's been done as even little listservs do the same thing. So I'd say start simple, and let's see what evolves. And often if people ask very practical questions. Someone asks, "Can you tell me someone who can do this?" And someone chips in. So that works really, really well. And I have in the past moderated a listserv, and it went really well. And didn't have any hackers or rogue people. So yeah, something simple, I think. And then we can see the demand. And if the demand's not there, fine. If it's there, it will be useful.
That's really good. I think, there's not much, the session, we have not been anticipating that this would generate, we were knowing about it, what we are heading to, but we are feeling so very blessed and happy that you have given us the work. This is a work for the future. We are currently putting in the efforts for the future, and that's what, makes the things really so promising. And this forum would be, because all of us who belongs to that era, we know that during the late 1990s, how we got benefited, the IFLA list forum, we had a Unix wizards. I still remember, wherein someone sitting somewhere in some part of the world asking a question, someone responding back. And that is the best practices sharing also, sharing of best practices. And we can eventually, as we are thinking about making it as a very major big movement, as a very major big initiative, so some part of it can get into the portal, something can get into the futuristic thinking of doing some activities on the ground, collaborators. There would be some of you who would come forward and saying, yes, we have already done, or you are interested to do, and not limited only to the libraries. We are going to bring in this institutions like, for example, we already have, there are our members, National Institute of Disaster Management. They are here in Delhi. We are already now asking them, that we are wanting to do something. So we can bring the organizations together, but constructively in a very focused manner, working for the libraries, working for these institutions, and whatever that they hold with them.
I can add to that one project that we're examining the feasibility of. That sounds good government talk. we had part of the grant that we had to train. We examined the feasibility of mapping libraries that have local history collections, unique collections, emergency services map. We don't know if it's going to happen, and the meeting's in a fortnight, but they already have maps of the historic. People are first. So our group was saying, what about collections? What about the museum, little community museums? What about the libraries? We have the GPS data. We have them listed. The library group in South Australia has them all listed. Can we get them on the map? So I can't tell you whether we'll be successful or not, but that would be.
You also, Heather, that we are really thinking loud now to start. It is like a crowdsourcing platform and creating across, because one can appreciate 9,000 institutions and multiply the number of professional colleagues who are being there spread across the country. So we want to create a huge map of the country, even outside also, and crowdsourcing platform wherein someone will pin, saying that, oh yes, there is a library having this rare collection and a special collection. There are private collections which are also there. They may not be the very known ones, but yes, people, they know the private collections, people they have with them. So we really want to create it more, and that would come into this. Also to locate where are those rare and special collections lying. Even if someone asks, you may have a handful of a very prestigious, very, very known, and you say, oh yes, they have got, but there are many others who are also having, but they are not the ones. But if you see, the rarity is, it is the rarity of that particular resource, that document that, we have to. And I think the visibility is one of the things that we have to bring in, to this. So we can think about bringing, this disaster risk management plans and practices and all, but firstly, also we need to know where is this entire treasure house lying, where all it is lying. And that's also preserving, preserving the past, but we also must know what all have we got inherited, from the past. I think there's lots of thought also to get into that, and we have to, it's like a borderless, we have to go beyond and then see and make each and every one to come forward and say and help us in locating, oh yes, there is something in my locality, in my city, in my area, and which is though not on that very global, national or a local map, but they have a resource, and then we can have everyone together. Thank you so very much. I could see that. I'm really feeling so very happy and delighted that it's all because of two very extraordinary professional colleagues, Magus and Heather. To get into this conversation, such a meaningful conversation, which holds a great, not only relevance, but a great promise for the future. And each one of us, being a part of the present, is feeling so very blessed that both of you have been able to the core, not only to inspire, you have given us that streak of light that yes, we have to, we have made a beginning. It's not that we are not waiting for the beginning to happen. We have made a beginning today, 16th of November, loud and clear, 2024. We have made a beginning to make this as securing our libraries, securing our assets in our institutions. That should be our priority. And each one of us has to contribute, to it. It's not that we just simply becomes, a kind of beneficiaries. We also want that even small little things that we are undertaking to get into those conversations, open conversations. That's, I think, that's very, very vital and important. Solutions, are already there. It's not that we have to look out for the solutions. Solutions are already there. It is to reach out, to tell them that, yes, it is being there. This is something doable. This is something that you can do. Through this wonderful deliberations today, through this international symposium, it has been not only the special and the rare collections. I think we have gotten tremendous opportunity today to get into these very special and rare conversations also at the same time, that we have been able to engage into this. And this has simply been truly an amazing experience for each one of us. There are many takeaways. I was wanting to write, because we have publicized it at various platforms and have been wanting to have, a kind of takeaways, but I could see that it's not something that you can just scan with a borrowed vocabulary. You would be able to write it because there's not much that you can do. It is just like this reminds me that Dr. Call, I was not a witness to it in 1988, 7th January 1988. There was a brainstorming session at India International Center where he served, and that was for networking of libraries in Delhi. And it was just a 1-hour session. This is just to tell you, because they have a ritual of having the get-together, the New Year's get-together. Rajiv is here and he would be knowing also about this, how DELNET got conceptualized. So Dr. Call convened, and this is for Heather to you also to know about it, 1988. So he organized as a, after the tea, organized 1-hour session. And the title of the session was Networking of Libraries in Delhi. And he said that, Sangeeta, I was not knowing what was driving me, to get into, but because he visited libraries in France and US in 1988 beginning and 87. And he said, I just felt like, let me engage. And he said that it was just simply with an idea, why not to network the libraries and work together? And that eventually led to the establishment of DELNET in 1992. And that he kept on working silently for 3-4 years and eventually, got it established. I'm strongly getting those heavenly blessings and vibrations from him, saying that we are onto the path which is going to take us, and we have made a new beginning today. We have made a beginning today because this is something which each one of us has to work for. And I can assure you, promise you that DELNET would always remain committed, because we also are always on a constant lookout that what needs to be reformed, how to bring in that change. And the change is an ever evolving process. The more you get into it, you always keep on looking at, oh yes, this is something. The more you cover the distance, then you are able to, there's much to do. There's much to do. And I think our two brilliant, extraordinary speakers and the wonderful colleagues, from Australia, from Singapore, they have really made it possible for us to get into this new realms, to get into the future that we hold for the libraries, and also making it possible for us to know that what is happening, what has happened, but at the same time also what all needs to be done. And so thank you very much, Magus. We have taken not much of your time. It is 4:45 for you right now at Singapore. And thank you very much, Heather. We cannot thank you enough to both of you. A big round of applause, appreciation, admiration, and it is much beyond. Thank you so very much indeed. As a token of our warm admiration for your relentless efforts in being there, I would like to stand, in fact, Magus, but since the camera is being set and I have my online colleagues who are there with us, may I have a pleasure of requesting you to accept we will ensure that what you are seeing right now on the 4 legs, this gets at National Library of Singapore on your desk. And this is when you open the pack, remember it being given with much of admiration for you, Megan. It cannot such a wonderful new association, new connection today. and our common connect, Peter. We have to really thank you immensely for it to make it happen. I'm going to send it across to you. We'll be fully packed, and I'll be really happy you send me a pic with this in the foreground or in the background, whatsoever you wish. But I really want to see a pic of both of you coming back to us.
Okay.
Thank you, indeed. Thank you. It's a location to acknowledge a wonderful colleague and his friend, and Peter. Lovely. Yeah, it's very sweet. So Magus, I'm just connecting with you right now, and any concluding words you may like to share with us, please.
Okay, I am overwhelmed. I didn't expect it to be this exciting and this interesting, and I think I must thank you, and I must also thank Heather for introducing me to Sangeeta and to DELNET. Although I heard of DELNET when I was attending IFLA. I was once the secretary of the rare books section for IFLA, and I remember hearing about DELNET, but I never really knew what DELNET was about, and I never met the people associated with DELNET. And I must thank both of you for connecting me to this part of the world. Although my ancestors came from India, I have settled in Singapore. So I'm really glad to have presented, whatever our best practices are. And I know I didn't really share everything, but if anybody is interested in talking about valuation, because that's actually a key component of my work, about insurance coverage, I'll be more than happy to share with you. So I am really, really grateful and honored to be invited to speak at this forum. Thank you so much.
Very much, Magus. Peter.
What can I say? Thank you. And please look after my heart.
A very small expression of a very warm, sincere gratitude. It's an expression which really, to the core, expresses our gratefulness to the forces, firstly, who makes it possible for us now to meet in the coordinates of time and space. It's a great blessing. And I must say, 700 attendees who were there online, and I was feeling so very happy messages from our colleagues from Delhi, NCR, here and there, other regions that, ma'am, we are coming. Some of them were writing it in person, some of them coming, madam, and the word coming, it makes you in the digital, whatever we talk about the digital, but yes, in person makes a huge difference. And the reach that you're able to have now through the digital means world, you feel it so strongly that you are connected. So our colleagues who have been able to join us, please remember, when they meet, they say, ma'am, we are able to see you, but I always tell them that we want to see you, and we want to really have in technology wherein we can. But yes, this is to tell you that we see you through your sincerity, through your zeal and desire that you hold with you. You may be traveling, you may be there at the workplace or not at the workplace, but yes, you always say that, yes, we have put it in the calendar, and there are those others who miss out the event, and then they say, ma'am, was the program happen? Because somehow I missed it. You always keep on inspiring us. You always inspire us to the core, which makes it possible for us to keep up this flame of, building up connections, nurturing the connections, to be on the lookout for establishing the new connections. And it's such a wonderful phenomena. It is such a beautiful reality that you could not have asked for anything more. The sense of together, this together for a purpose, being a part, like co-creating. This is what we always strongly believe in. We have to co-create the future. No one can think about doing anything. We are not the ones who should think, oh yes, that we can do it. Get into the establishing connections, leading to collaborations, and practically to contribute. That sense of contribution, the purpose is much higher. And we always feel an organization, DELNET, we are into the 33rd year. We always feel so very blessed that we have got an opportunity to remain connected. And it gives you a feeling, which is a very blissful feeling, that yes, and the sense of contributing, working, and to ensure that we are able to create that difference. Even a small little ripple, if we can do it in the still waters, we should be blessed enough, And that's what keeps DELNET on the move. And each one of you, this is for each one of you, a great, grateful thanks, gratitude, be connected, remain connected, because you inspire us. And that's how, with a small dedicated team, I'm just happy to share, we are here at Delhi with our headquarters here, with a very dedicated team. We are happy to share. We have got our own offices now in Bangalore. We are inaugurating our own office now in Pune. It's a very nice, beautiful location, a new office of DELNET. We also are just starting off now. Our interior work in our Lucknow office is happening right now, and we are hoping by closure of March end. So 2 more new offices of DELNET will be operational. We are also establishing our office in Calcutta, that is for the eastern part of the country. And that also hopefully should be done, God willing, by March end. So we are trying to see that we are able to reach out. The dream is Dr. Call that, to see to it that each and every person is looking for information. DELNET should be able to really be able to contribute and contributing in making a more well-informed. So we are, wherever we are, it's all because of you, wherever we are. And we really count on your support. Please remember that. Always think of DELNET is not just one single entity. No, each one of you. It is made by you. It is made for you. It is made, you are the ones who really holds the key for making it to keep on having this. But the continuous drive, the mission and the vision remains to be, keep on empowering, to spread that light. And each one of us has to bring ourselves fully onto this spectrum of, bringing our efforts together. So thank you so much. Always remain truly grateful for your tremendous support, the tireless support, and be there with us always. You are a strength. You are a strength. We really look forward. We really look forward. Many takeaways, and I can assure you that we would keep, right from today itself. This is the first launching thing that we have done at the Symposium, and many things just focused on this, on the disaster risk management in the libraries, handling the rare collections, because it's all an integrated thing. We would be working on it, and you are a part and parcel of it. And we really want that in the days to come, we should be able to take it to the next level of discussions and to typically to contribute this particular direction. So thank you so very much, each one of you, for being such a wonderful part of today's deliberation. And we remain truly grateful. Our very special thanks, cannot thank enough Magus and Peter for such wonderful, truly scintillating deliberations, which has ignited us, which has really made us to think beyond, our own thinking, and that's something, the need of the hour. We have to really get ourselves more awakened, that there cannot be a better time than now, to start working for it. And but we have made new wonderful beginnings today, and we really look forward to have many more meaningful dialogues and interactions on this. We look forward to having you back on 3rd of December, and that's where we have our program, the DELNET annual lecture by Professor Emily Drabinsky, and requesting you to please join us. And this is for our online attendees, that you will be receiving just in another 1 hour's time. You will be receiving the digital certificate of participation. For those who are here, hold your breath. We do have the printed ones, not the digital. The printed copies are being there. And we request you, in the email that you're receiving in 1 hour's time, there would also be a link. There would also be a link to to register for this. So, and we are also going to send across this link to everyone. And this is to mention that Professor Emily Drabinsky would be here in person at DELNET on 3rd of December. And the session will be at 11:30. And as the title says, and that's also our vision and mission, sharing as strength. So this is exactly, Peter, what you have been, Stay tuned, and she said, DELNET is passing on the baton, and the baton has been passed. We have seen here today sharing as strength. But through this knowledge sharing, we know that what is the strength that it has brought in, lot much of, we all have felt so empowered today with the deliberations. And the talk is going to be on sharing as strength, libraries as connection machines, which is typically what we think about of DELNET. Yes, yeah, the mighty strength, we really want to feel more empowered by looking at it. So we request you, those of you who are there online with us, please do join us, and we are going to send you also the invites for it. In our the certificates that we are sending it, there is an email, and that carries the link, so you can just click on and can register. And those of my wonderful colleagues who have been able to come, making the extra effort in coming out, on a Saturday, a sunny, bright Saturday morning of November 16, 2024. This is to request you. We really want you to come back and be here again on 3rd of December. Mark it on your calendar. It falls on a Tuesday. We wish we can hold all the programs on Saturdays, but you can understand it's not always feasible enough, though our preference goes, because we know the professionals, you relatively have a better, comfortable day to, spare a little time. We would truly appreciate your being here on 3rd of December. So we are towards the closure of the program, and Magus, this is for you. We have barged in 35 minutes of yours more, and it's a time for you now to head for home. And always remember that this day has been made so very special with your very distinguished presence and the deliberations. So from each one of us, a big thank you to you, and Heather, a big thank you for making it possible as the first stopover at DELNET. We always wish and desire that DELNET remains as your first stopover in India. So once you land in India, the first stopover, and then you can country. We are nearby to the Delhi airport, yeah, and Delhi remains the heart of the country, and you remain in our heart forever. So please do see to it that you always accommodate. And thank you so much for such a gracious support. No words to express, Thank you so much. So with this, we wonderful international symposia on management of rare and special collections and UNESCO Toolkit for disaster resilience. And the session has truly been the most enlightening and an engaging one. Once again, our profound gratitude and thanks to our distinguished speakers, both Mrs. Makeswary, Periasamy, and Dr. Heather Brown, for making it a very, very special and a memorable session. Thank you, and thank you very much, each one of you. My very special thanks to my own dedicated colleagues here at DELNET, Mr. Kushal Goswami, Mr. Rohit, Mr. Dinesh, and I have huge number of other colleagues who have always been, we are the ones who always ensure that we keep on the of the networking, the library networking, and having everyone together, So thank you very much, our young dedicated team, for putting in your best efforts to see to it that the things they work on. So thank you very much, one and all. Also to tell you that the entire recording of today's deliberations will be made live, if not today, because it's going to take a little time for the platform to make the video available. But by Monday, Kushal will ensure that by first half on Monday, we make the entire recording available. This will be available on the YouTube channel of DELNET. That is WebView. Please do subscribe to it, and so that we keep on uploading number of recordings onto that of our programs, and you will be notified about it. We'll look back again, and this is for our colleagues here. We are going to have a group photograph, and those who are online, please excuse that we are going to miss you. We are definitely going to miss you in not having you captured, but we have captured you through the wonderful memories of your presence being here today. Thank you so very much. All, it has truly been a great blessing, great honor for us to have you here, and we look forward to having you back again on 3rd of December. A big applause for each one of you from each one of us. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.